welcome. We're back in Deadline's Zurich Summit studio. I'm delighted to be joined here today by UTA's finest, Rena Ronson and Alex Brunner. Thanks so much for being here both.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming. We're just discussing, it's your first time in here with us, which is really exciting for us. We're kind of nearing the end of the day of the sessions here at Zurich for the summit. It's been pretty interesting. It's always been good, I find. Here in Zurich, it's a good place to do kind of like a temperature check, because we're sort of post-TIFF, we're definitely post-CAN now. So I'd love to just ask you guys, get your thoughts on, it's a broad question, but what are we looking at in terms of the health of the indie sector at the moment? What are your takeaways? A few weeks after the first TIFF market, and CAN seem relatively slow, but from where you sit, how are things looking?
I mean, we're huge supporters of the independent sector, so we feel we're always optimistic. I'm certainly optimistic, but it is definitely a slower process. So when you come out of Toronto and you're only hearing about 4 films, 5 films selling, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get another 10, 20 films selling. But it's just the pace of the sale is slower because I think the distributors, as you heard certainly here, are contemplating every aspect of it. Who's my audience? How much will I have to spend? Is this going to be something wide? Is it going to be awards driven? So there's so much more thought that goes in, and I'd say there were probably 67 plus films for sale from the agencies alone. That's not to say anywhere else. And so it's impossible for a buyer to actually watch them all and evaluate them all within a 10-day period. And actually it's less because they don't stay for the full 10 days. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. There have been some great sales and there were some really interesting films. I think we're all excited about Session. We've sold a few films that we're excited about as well. But I think it's been a challenging time, but only because I think we're in a sort of evolving moment since COVID and the strikes, and people are getting used to going back to the theaters, which is kind of exciting. I'm going back to the theaters, and I know it's crazy to say, but I hadn't in a long while.
No,
and
me
so
too.
It's really exciting to say what's playing this weekend. What can I go see? So I think again, we're optimistic. It's a different pace. That's all. Just changing.
So you don't think there's any, to be clear, just because these deals aren't as frantic and they're not getting done at the market, it's not a cause for worry or concern?
No, the buyers are just being a lot more thoughtful and calculated and running their numbers. And as Rena said, there were 60 plus titles. Yeah. I mean, we're still in TIFF. Like Michael Barker and I were just talking about a movie last night, and he's like, I'm excited to see it. I need to get to see that movie. It's the pace of these festivals now.
So where does that put the indie producers then, that are kind of putting, in financiers, because U.S. deals are so, as we know, historically have been such a game changer for getting some of these films off the ground. If it's moving slower and you don't have that U.S. deal and you're waiting until you have a finished product, that creates an enormous amount of stress.
Yeah, I mean,
I think on the back end of it.
Yeah, I think that it's all about the budgets of the films. How do you make them? Where do you make them? And what valuation do you put against a territory like the U.S.? And the financiers will look at that valuation and decide how much risk do I want to take. That's why, you heard conversations earlier about shooting films overseas, because the benefits can be sometimes greater because of their regional and government grants and tax incentives that sometimes can add up to more than we have right now in the U.S. So it's about really figuring out and navigating how to get these films financed is really understanding the value. So we just have a different place number against the U.S., so it becomes less risky. And some financiers are risk averse, and some are not. They take risks, and many times those prove to be the right risk.
What are financiers looking for at the moment? I mean, that's a broad. They're different, but what would you say? What's driving them?
I think it's personal taste, ROI, the types of stories, the types of filmmakers, specific genres. I mean, it's sort of across the board. I mean, there are some financiers who really just want to support women or and unrepresented voices. There's some financiers who just, I want genre, just wanted to make horror movies. It's across the board.
But I think genre movies, we're seeing them play certainly more successfully, and that's why I think, Tom talked about films like Longlegs and Monkey and Together, and a film that just came out of Toronto called The Obsession that Focus bought, and those are genre pictures. And I think it's because it seems to be, because I'm not young anymore, that the younger audience is really driving, driving those films, and they're attending the films, in groups, and that's exciting. Yeah. But also filmmakers. I think the filmmaker is, the auteur voice, and the story will always drive a film, no matter what it just will.
These sort of auteurs, a good friend of mine called it smart house, where it's like something very distinctive, something you could really hang your hat on as a marketeer. Audience will go, that's very unusual, or that's a story I'd love to see that I don't find anywhere else, especially on their phones. They all want to go to the cinemas. And genre is a funny thing. I have two 16-year-old daughters, and they've discovered horror. And this last month, they would watch Demon Hunters at home, and then the next week they will go to the cinema and watch it twice with their friends. Wow. And then last weekend, he says, Daddy, can we watch Blair Witch Project? I don't know how my 16-year-olds found out about Blair Witch, but they're, much like Letterboxd and these other great platforms, they're going into a deep dive. They're going through a discovery. Like, I want to find movies that make me feel this way, or find stories that, that we could relate to. And but they were just we're on a couch like this at home, and they're just bouncing around. And this is, Blair Witch was a while ago. Yeah. Some of us even remember watching it.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's very encouraging.
Yeah.
I think,
I mean, that's one
the
sector.
The discovery of films that were made 20 years ago, which I thought was really interesting. That's exciting too.
Yeah. My son's 13, and he came into my room the other day and he said, Mom, have you heard about this movie, The Usual Suspects? And I was like, yeah, I have. And I thought, actually, that would be a great movie to watch, but I have to rewatch it. Is he a bit young for that? No, I think
there's some harsh language.
It's been a while since I've seen it, so I'd have to rewatch it.
But it is interesting because in some ways it's like music. My daughter, sometimes when I'd be singing a song, how do you know that song? I'm like, well, you think this is your generation? And perhaps that's what's happening in with cinema. No,
that feels good. That feels, because we do talk a lot about like how dire it is and how the market's contracting, and there's been even today, but we have to also focus on, I think it's hugely important to talk about, the green, the positives, and there's a lot of good bleeding in this business right now.
We had weapons, but materialists, sinners, Anora, like there's all these things popping up, and all of them are very very distinctive stories.
So for each of you, I mean, we're at the end of September now. We've had some of the the fall festival season's kind of well underway. I would love to know what some highlights have been for each of you, like anything you saw that you really loved, or anything kind of conversations you're having. What have been some kind of positive or exciting bits that you've taken away across the last sort of 6 weeks or so?
Joachim Trier's film just blew me away. Yeah, blew me away. I thought that was, he's a client of ours, and I got to work with him on his one and possibly last American film shot here, and he talks about it in the press, about the freedom of shooting a film overseas for him and having, final cut and say over what he does. But that film was just spectacular. Yeah.
James McAvoy's directorial debut. It's a festival,
very exciting,
playing here at this festival. But just to watch that happen, the conversion from a big actor like that to a filmmaker with this story was vocationally very rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And Joachim's film is sentimental value, by the way. You didn't mention that.
And it's fantastic. I loved it. One final question for you. Again, it's come up a lot today. There's some new U.S. distribution blood in the marketplace, which feels really good. Rogue Sutherland was on here earlier saying there's more to come. What does that mean for the U.S. ecosystem? Tell me your thoughts on kind of having more buyers out there, and how this is going to benefit the business.
It's great, and it already has benefited the business just by virtue of some of the deals made by Roquet in Toronto. We sold them Charlie Harper. and Black Bear as well, who released 2 films that we actually sold the films back to them that they were financing, but Christie and Tuner, which are fantastic films, and they're really bullish and excited about being in the industry in this way and distribution. So it's good for our ecosystem.
Yeah.
They just now they have to succeed.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it gives us all hope, but I think with these new wide release companies, essentially that's what there will be. I think they've learned from what A24 have been doing, and especially Tom, just watching what he's done in the last 7 years, that there is a different new way to market these films and reach audiences. And, and I think they're discovering that.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll learn about the next couple. I think we know about one particularly, but the more the merrier.
Yeah. Well, let's see. All
Let's
eyes
see.
on this. Thanks both so
Of
much for coming
course.
today. Thank you.
Thank you.